Stop for a moment, before you scroll, before you smile at another heart-shaped post, before you say, Happy Valentine's Day, without thinking. Let me ask you something that might change the way you see February 14th forever. What if I told you that this day of roses and chocolates was born in blood? What if I told you that behind every red heart is a prison cell? Behind every love letter is a final goodbye. And behind the words, Be my Valentine, is a man who was executed? We celebrate love with candles and dinners, but this story does not begin in a restaurant. It begins in fear. It begins in war. It begins inside the stone walls of the Roman Empire, where love was not celebrated. It was illegal. Today, you will not just learn English. You will travel 1,700 years back in time. You will feel the silence of forbidden love. You will witness courage without weapons. And by the end of this story, Valentine's Day will never look the same again. This is not just history. This is sacrifice. This is rebellion. This is love against power. And this is English Journey, where we don't just learn words, we experience them. The year is around 250 AD. The Roman Empire controls most of the known world. Its armies are strong, its borders wide, its emperor feared. But inside the empire, something is breaking. Rome is at war from the outside and unstable from within. Soldiers are dying in large numbers. Rebellions are rising. Fear is spreading. And on the throne sits Emperor Claudius II, a man obsessed with power and victory. He believes Rome needs stronger soldiers, more loyal soldiers, soldiers who are not distracted. And then he forms a dangerous idea. Love makes men weak. In his mind, a married soldier is a divided soldier. A husband thinks about his wife. A father thinks about his children. A man in love wants to survive. But an unmarried man, he fights without hesitation. So Claudius makes a shocking decision. He bans marriage. No soldier is allowed to marry. No weddings, no vows, no families. If you want to serve Rome, you must sacrifice love. Imagine living in that world. You meet someone, you fall in love, you dream of building a life together, but the government says no. Your love is now illegal. Your future is forbidden. Thousands of couples are forced into silence. They whisper in dark streets. They avoid guards. They hide their feelings like criminals. There are no celebrations, no church bells, no public promises, only fear, only separation, only heartbreak. Rome becomes powerful, but emotionally empty. But in every empire built on fear, there is always one person who refuses to accept it. His name was Valentine. He was not a warrior, not a politician, not a rebel leader. He was a quiet Christian priest living in Rome at a time when Christianity itself was illegal. Even practicing his faith was dangerous. But what made Valentine different was not just his belief in God, it was his belief in love. He believed marriage was sacred. He believed that when two people truly loved each other, no emperor had the right to separate them. So when young couples came to him in secret, afraid and desperate, asking, "Father, can you marry us?" he did not turn them away. He did not say, "It's too dangerous." He did not say, "The law forbids it." He looked into their eyes and saw something greater than Rome. He saw commitment. And so, by candlelight, in hidden rooms, in gardens at night, inside caves and quiet houses, Valentine began performing secret weddings. No music, no celebration, just whispered vows and trembling hands. Every ceremony was an act of rebellion. Every marriage was a risk, and every "I do" was stronger than the emperor's command. Word began to spread across the city. There is a priest who will marry you. Lovers started knocking on his door, one by one. night after night. Hope returned to Rome, quietly. But empires hate quiet resistance. Spies began listening, soldiers began watching, rumors reached the palace, and one night, during a secret ceremony, the door was broken open. Soldiers stormed in. The young couple escaped into the darkness. But Valentine stayed. He did not run. He did not beg. He was arrested and dragged through the streets of Rome. People watched from their windows, some afraid, some inspired, some silent. He was thrown into prison, cold stone walls, chains, darkness. Emperor Claudius ordered him brought forward. When they met, something unexpected happened. Claudius did not see a monster. He saw a calm, intelligent, fearless man. "Why do you disobey me?" the emperor demanded. Valentine answered softly, "Because love comes from God, not from you, and no law can destroy what God created." Claudius offered him one final chance. "Stop performing marriages. Reject your faith. Swear loyalty to me, and you will live." Valentine did not shout. He did not argue. He simply said, "I would rather die for love than live in fear." And in that moment, his fate was sealed. He was sentenced to execution, February 14th. But even prison could not silence his story, because behind those bars, something extraordinary was about to happen, something that would echo across centuries. The prison was dark, but it was not empty. It was filled with silence so heavy that it almost felt alive. The walls were thick stone, cold and unforgiving. Chains hung from iron hooks. A small window near the ceiling allowed only a thin line of sunlight to enter during the day, and at night, even that disappeared. Valentine was now just another prisoner in the Roman Empire. No church, no secret weddings, no whispered vows, no couples knocking on his door. Only time. Only waiting. Only the slow footsteps of guards outside his cell. But there was something unusual about him. The other prisoners noticed it first. He did not curse his fate. He did not scream at the guards. He did not collapse in fear. Instead, he prayed. He spoke gently to anyone who would listen. He comforted criminals. He encouraged the broken. Even in chains, he seemed free. And that freedom confused people. The jailer of that prison, a Roman officer often believed to be named Asterius, had heard the rumors. This was not a violent rebel, not a dangerous traitor. This was a priest who married lovers in secret. Curiosity slowly replaced suspicion. One day, the jailer decided to speak with him. Their conversations began carefully, almost cautiously. They spoke about Rome, about faith, about law, about power, and about love. The jailer expected anger. Instead, he found calm conviction. Valentine did not attack the empire. He did not insult the emperor. He simply defended one idea, that love is sacred and cannot be controlled by fear. The jailer listened more than he spoke. Something about Valentine's presence felt steady, grounded, unshaken. The jailer had a daughter. She was young, intelligent, gentle, but blind since birth. She had never seen sunlight, never seen the face of her father, never seen the colors of Rome. Her world existed only through sound and imagination. One evening during a conversation, the jailer said quietly, almost testing him, "If your God is real, can he help my daughter?" It was not just a question. It was a challenge. The next day, he brought her to the prison cell. Imagine that moment. A blind girl stepping slowly into a cold stone room, her father guiding her hand, chains echoing softly, a priest sitting quietly in the corner. Valentine did not treat her with pity. He spoke to her with warmth. He described the world to her. He told her about the blue sky stretching endlessly above Rome. He described the ocean waves, the green of trees, the red of roses. He explained what sunrise feels like when light touches your face. For the first time in her life, she began to see through words. She visited again, and again, and again. Their conversations grew deeper. They spoke about hope, about belief, about courage. Some say she began to believe in his faith. Some say she formed a deep spiritual connection with him. Not romantic, not dramatic, but pure and meaningful. In the darkest place in Rome, light was growing. One day, the jailer made a decision. "Pray for her," he said. Valentine placed his chained hands gently over her eyes. No shouting, no performance, just a quiet prayer whispered in faith. And according to legend, something impossible happened. At first, she saw light, just brightness, then shapes, then colors. Slowly, the world appeared before her. Imagine seeing your father's face for the first time. Imagine seeing the sky, the prison walls, the sun through the window. Tears filled the room, not of pain, but of shock and overwhelming joy. Was it a miracle? History cannot confirm every detail, but the story survived centuries because people believed something extraordinary happened in that cell. Yet even this did not change the emperor's decision. Claudius II had already made his choice. Execution would proceed. February 14th was set. Time inside the prison became heavier. Each sunrise felt closer to the end. Valentine knew his life would soon end, but he remained calm. He had already chosen his path long ago when he decided that love was greater than fear. The night before his execution, he asked for paper and ink. The guards allowed it. He did not write to the emperor. He did not write to defend himself. He wrote to the jailer's daughter, the girl who once lived in darkness. His letter was simple, encouraging, faithful, full of quiet strength. At the bottom, he signed it with 4 words that would outlive him. From your Valentine. He did not know those words would cross centuries. He did not know millions would one day write them on cards filled with hearts. He simply wrote them as a final act of connection, a final act of humanity. The next morning, February 14th, around the year 269 AD, Valentine was led out of his cell. No crowd cheering, no ceremony, only soldiers, only silence. He was executed for defying an emperor, for marrying lovers, for protecting faith, for believing that love should never be illegal. His body was buried quietly. Rome moved on. Wars continued. Emperors rose and fell. But something strange happened. His name did not disappear. It grew. Slowly at first, whispered among Christian families who remembered the priest who risked everything. They told stories of secret weddings, of courage, of the letter, of the blind girl, and as years passed, those whispers became history, because ideas cannot be executed, and love cannot be buried. Valentine's body was buried quietly, but his story refused to stay silent. At first, only a few Christian families remembered him. They told their children about the priest who risked everything for love. They spoke about the secret weddings, the prison miracle, the final letter signed from your Valentine. And slowly, those whispers became history. Years later, in 313 AD, when Emperor Constantine made Christianity legal, the stories of martyrs were finally told openly. Valentine was no longer a criminal. He was honored as Saint Valentine, a man who died for faith and for love. The church marked February 14th as his feast day, a day to remember his sacrifice. But something beautiful happened. People began connecting this day not only with his death, but with love itself. In the Middle Ages, Europeans believed that mid-February was the season when birds chose their mates. Poets like Geoffrey Chaucer wrote about love and Saint Valentine in the same breath, connecting romance with his name. Slowly, February 14th became more than a religious memory. It became a day of expressing love. At first, people wrote letters by hand, simple, honest words, no gifts, no pressure, just feelings written on paper. The oldest known Valentine message was written in 1415 by Charles, Duke of Orléans, to his wife while he was in prison. Just like the first Valentine himself, writing from behind bars. But as centuries passed, the world changed. Printing machines were invented. Cards were mass-produced. Businesses saw opportunity. Flowers were sold. Chocolates were shaped like hearts. Jewelry became proof of love. And slowly, the day shifted from sacrifice to spending. Today, billions of dollars are spent every year on Valentine's Day. Social media is filled with couple photos, expensive surprises, romantic dinners, and public displays of affection. For some, it feels magical. For others, it feels like pressure. But here's the truth most people forget. Valentine's Day was never about price tags. It was never about diamonds or Instagram posts. It began with a man who chose love over fear, a man who performed weddings in silence, a man who wrote one final letter before death. Love does not live in gifts. It lives in courage. It lives in forgiveness. It lives in choosing someone even when it is difficult. It lives in calling your parents and saying thank you. It lives in hugging your child. It lives in checking on a friend who feels alone. It lives in respecting yourself. Real love is not loud. It is not perfect, but it is powerful. So this February 14th, don't just celebrate love. Understand it. Don't measure it by money. Measure it by meaning. If you are in a relationship, love deeply. If you are single, love confidently. If no one buys you flowers, buy them for yourself. If no one writes you a letter, write one to your future self. Because you are worthy of love, not just on one day, but every day. Valentine proved that empires fall, but love remains. And that is why, after 1,700 years, we still whisper his name. This is English Journey, where we don't just learn English, we feel it. If this story touched your heart and improved your English, share it with someone you care about. And remember, real love is brave. Happy Valentine's Day. From my heart to yours.